Hello everyone, and welcome to my self-guided learning project. My name is Richard, and I've just returned from an incredible educational tour that spanned Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, the Czech Republic, and culminated in a powerful leadership conference in Berlin. This journey wasn't just about sightseeing. It was a deep dive into my central research question. How does diversity and inclusion manifest and evolve in the unique historical and social context of Eastern Europe? And how does it play a role in shaping its infrastructure compared to the Western societies? After hopping onto my connecting flight at London, my tension and excitement arose as I was a step closer to stepping foot onto a new part of the world that I had never reached before. When we got out of the airport, we met up with a tour guide, Octavian, who briefly introduced himself on the way to the hotel and would be the person guiding us throughout the trip. I was excited to start my journey with him. The first tour of the trip the next day was a walking tour of the downtown area in Bucharest, where I got to see the historical monuments and symbolic places which was inspired by the decades-long history of the Soviet influence over the past century. We also toured the Parliament building, or what is known to be the heaviest building in the world, where all the rooms and floors would feel like a labyrinth, and people say that a simple hide-and-seek game could last for days. Our tour guide of the walking tour told us that during the communist control over Bucharest, diversity and different ideologies were scarcely prohibited, and everyone had to support the socialist state and their beliefs. During the Ceausescu regime in the 1980s, Nicolae Ceausescu forced many of the colonial infrastructures of the city, especially historical churches and religious sites, to either be demolished or forced to move to pave way for newer infrastructures that were planned to be built to modernize the city. This practice is known to be as systemization. The walking tour guide told us one example of this is an Orthodox church called the Cresculescu Church that we saw across the street from the Royal Palace, which was saved from demolition when engineers and architects decided to move it across the street to preserve it while paving way for the communist buildings. This is why the layout of the city differs vastly compared to Western societies, as it is mixed with historical parts that were preserved and modern parts that were built by the communists. After the long walking tour in Bucharest, we settled down at the communal park, where we spent some time paddling on the boat on its lake. As I paddled my boat around the lake, I could see many people coming from a diverse range or ethnic background, hanging and picnicking around the lake, which made me wonder how much this place has changed throughout the years. We ended our day with a nice dinner at a local restaurant, where I feasted on their culture and saw some traditional dances take place. I even got a chance to join in with other people in the end. This shows me an example of how much better and easier it is for us to get along these days. After a nice and informative day in Bucharest, we ventured further out. We explored more unique and historical sites that were better preserved as the geographical barriers made it challenging for outsiders to get through. The most notable place included the famous Dracula Castle that is located in the province of Transylvania on the Carpathian Mountains. It was originally built for the royal family of Transylvania in the 14th century and was their property for centuries until it was seized by the communist forces from Princess Anna in the mid-20th century, officially being the last owner of the castle. Now it opens up to the public and becomes an inseparable part of this local town called Bran, next to the bigger city of Brașov. We also visited more beautiful places like the Budapest Baths, where I noticed more ethnic diversity and a place where all types of people are free to hang out at. In the next few days, we traveled through borders and visited many small cities. I noticed that those places aren't a popular place for tourists and international job seekers, and thus have kept their unique culture and ethnic vibe. Perhaps that's how preserve their traditional values, which can be seen from the style of the infrastructure and city layout, which feels authentic, original, cozy, and full of history. As we eventually made our way up towards Germany, we made stops in other capitals that we passed for a few days. The further west we traveled, the larger the population and the wave of tourists we started seeing. More global shops and businesses flourished there. There were also more religions there despite going through major historical conflicts. When we arrived at our final destination in Berlin, we settled down at the historical area of Checkpoint Charlie, where we had lunch and then met up with a local tour guide who led our group on an unforgettable walking and bus tour through central Berlin. We began by tracing the remnants of the Berlin Wall. Our guide, in the meantime, vividly recounting tales of daring escapes, explained how they separated families and how it added to the tension that once gripped the city. From there, we stopped by the Brandenburg Gate, its iconic columns instantly transporting us to a bygone era of imperial grandeur and Cold War division. Standing before the Reichstag building, we learn about its tumultuous history from the fire that once fueled Nazi propaganda to its symbolic reopening as Germany reunified. After that, we drove through East and West Berlin, where I noticed that West Berlin looked more lively, showing off remnants of its rich history. The buildings were more diverse, with a lot of its historical infrastructure still in place. East Berlin, however, even with new changes, still has signs of its past, with similar-looking buildings and bigger, simpler roads. Lastly, we were taken to several Jewish memorials, such as the Memorial of the Murdered Jews of Europe, with its unsettling field of concrete slabs, allowed us to reflect on the immense scale of the tragedy. These sites, and others like them, underscore Germany's concerted efforts to confront its dark past, ensuring that the suffering of the Jewish community during the Holocaust era is never forgotten, and that the lessons learned resonate for future generations. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and reunification in 1990 truly unleashed Berlin's current diversity. The city, now free from ideological constraints and the physical barrier, became a beacon for people from all over the world seeking new opportunities in the vibrant cultural scene. The once distinct East and West infrastructure became the complex parcels of integration and modernization. While efforts have been made to harmonize the services and infrastructure, visible differences still remain. The monumental avenues and prefabricated buildings of the East often contrast with the more varied and sometimes more traditionally restored or modern capitalist architecture of the West. The reconnection of once severed public transport lines and utilities was a massive undertaking. Areas that were once desolate border strips, like Potsdamer Platz, were transformed into bustling modern centers, symbolizing the city's rebirth. Today, Berlin's diversity reflects its tumultuous history. It's a city where, according to Berlin Business Location Center, over 190 nationalities coexist, where different languages, cuisines, and cultures thrive. More voices can be heard and everyone can live freely there as a whole. What I learned from my stay in Berlin is that even though the scars of division are still visible in its architecture and urban planning, they also serve as a reminder of the city's journey from forced homogeneity to a proud, self-proclaimed melting pot. This incredible multi-country tour truly transformed my understanding of diversity and inclusion around the world. It showed me that these concepts are not monolithic. Seeing the resilience of various minority groups, the dedication of individuals like my tour guide, and the evolving efforts by government and civil society to better integrate their cultures has been incredibly inspiring. Even though we're still far away from having a fully unified society, the diversity across the world has been increasing every year and people are learning to coexist better. This experience has deepened my appreciation for cultural differences and reinforced my commitment to fostering deeper understanding of this topic. As my wonderful trip comes to an end, I can say that I feel sad about leaving these beautiful places and unforgettable people that I met along the trip, and I will truly miss them. But I do inspire to come back one day, hopefully in the near future.